Hey guys, Wayne D. Kramer here, author of the Heroes of Time series. Today I'm going to talk to you a bit about the healer and the process of creating my novels. So as you can see here, I'm actually wearing a shirt for the healer. Here we have Fulgar Geth, who's the main character. He is the star of the new book, The Healer. As of the recording of this video, this book is brand new, just launched on May 1st, 2024. And really excited about that, really excited to get that out there. It has been a long time coming, many more months to create this book than I originally expected. But I thought that in this video, it would be interesting to talk not just about the novel itself, but about the creation process, the process that I have followed to make this novel become a reality and to make it the best that I could make it. So I want to give you more insights into that. Hopefully you'll find it interesting. First, just to get it out there, The Healer is available now, of course, on Amazon, but also my own website. You can go to the Heroes of Time shop, shop.heroesoftime.com. So again, that's shop.heroesoftime.com. You can find all versions of The Healer there. You can also find bundle deals of The Healer along with Murdoch's Choice and Murdoch's Shadow. So you can get everything that has come out so far and get the best deal on all of those. I hope you'll check that out. Of course, that's all versions, paperback, hardcover, ebook, and for the print versions, you can get them signed as well from my shop. You can even choose your own ink color. Got several different color options for the ink, so that's kind of a fun thing you can do. Choose your own ink color. I will sign it for you, and you'll be on your way. So The Healer is an exciting prequel volume to the Heroes of Time series, again, starring Fulgar Geth. He's the fan favorite healer and spiritual guide from Murdoch's Choice. And the premise of this book, it's a butterfly's wing is healed and destiny unfolds. Follow the healer's path as he walks between shadow and light. So Fulgar really is an interesting character here. He is someone who is born with powers, innate powers. He's born with healing and magnetism. And as a result of that, you'd think maybe he's considered special, but it actually kind of makes him shunned with his friends and makes him very socially awkward. He deals with a lot of trauma, a lot of depression. His life, even from childhood, is marred by grief and hardship, having to do with the kingdom's rules around labor allocation that kind of destroys his family life. This is a tale full of action, friendship, love, coming of age, adventure, a whole lot of heart, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. If you like the Murdoch books, this is a great one to go to. Whether you start with The Healer or you started with Murdoch's Choice, you'll still enjoy it just the same either way. Going through the characters a bit, I just described Fulgar. He's the main character, of course. Then we enter in Benny, his best friend. He's been Fulgar's friend since early childhood. They've grown up together, and his family has faced some similar hardships and a similar fate as a result of society's rules. He has had to endure loss of his parents, and he's had enough. He's had enough of what society has, so he decides to let Fulgar in on his dream, his own personal dream, to follow the clues around an ancient talisman that he has inherited from his family to a place of power. A power that he believes, and he gets Fulgar to believe along with him, that will be able to grant them a destiny free from the rules and control of others. This would be a power beyond what even Fulgar has innately. Intent on skirting the kingdom's system of labor guilds, they turn to a life of thievery. They're rogues and vagabonds, hoping to scrape by until better days. Then they come across Jinx, quite by accident. She is a bright-spirited fugitive who has lost all memories of her past. She and Fulgur soon develop strong feelings for each other, and she becomes one of the team. So they're working together, living life together, growing closer, and becoming love interests. Just as they follow their strongest lead for the talisman's powerful origins, circumstances take a turn for the worse. Fulgur goes into a tailspin of depression and regret, and nearly cost him everything. Everybody that he loves, everything that he cares about, everything that he is, his entire direction just goes into shambles. And he finds himself, on top of all that, pursued by a mysterious shadow mage who takes a very, very dangerous interest in Fulgur's powers. He's really kind of intent on harvesting Fulgur's powers, the powers that he was born with. At the same time, a mysterious order of protectors steps in to guide Fulgur in his path. Fulgur finds that this order is also very interested in his birth powers, if you will, his innate powers of magnetism and healing. And, but they seem to approach it from more of the good side, right? Like the friendly side, more as as companions and comrades. And so they desire to guide Fulgur's path and to fight the presence of dark forces. Fulgur finds himself in the position of deciding whom he can trust and what it truly means to have faith. So that's kind of a bit about the healer, more details about the characters and the plot. So again, I hope you'll check that out. This was originally supposed to be a novella. It was originally going to be something more in the neighborhood of 30 to 40,000 words, kind of as a series teaser. But I found that Fulgur's story really needed more room to breathe. It needed more space to do it justice. And so the final novel ended up being about 75,000 words, which is kind of similar. It's still not a huge novel, but that's more similar to like Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone or the Philosopher's Stone. And so just to give you some idea of comparison there. Whether or not you've already read Murdoch's Choice, as I said, this is a good book to go to. It's the start of the series. You may see in another recent video that I've posted more specifically about the launch of The Healer. I go through the details about where this falls in the series and how the series is kind of structured a little bit like the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a way, in that we have Murdoch's Choice, Murdoch's Shadow, and The Healer as a prequel. All of that falls under Heroes of Time Legends, as I call it. And that Legends series is like a tie-in to the main series. So if you kind of think of it like the main series is like your Avengers storyline, and the tie-in is like your Captain America or Iron Man kind of storyline. So it ties in like that. So that's just and then the main book, the main series will start with the first Ethereal. That'll be the first of the main series. Okay. So again, if you want to pick up The Healer, that's just to remind you, that's available at shop.heroesoftime.com. All versions available, of course, signed copies. Now I want to get to the process a bit. Go through the process of creating this and my other novels. So first we have the very beginning steps, right? Where do you start? You start at the beginning. You don't have anything down yet. You have to create a story. So first comes the plotting and the outlining steps. This is done to various extents. I have not always been an extensive outliner. However, occasionally I have found that it does help guide my writing better if I do. Me personally, if I can get to the point of a chapter by chapter outline, that is nice. I tend to start the planning of a story on a broad level. I tend to follow a 3-act format. And so I kind of start with your Act 1, which is more like your introduction part of the story. You get to your inciting incident, which springboards you into Act 2, which is your main center part of the story. Can often tend to be the largest part of the story. You can find lots of videos on YouTube. Brandon Sanderson talks about it a lot, about the Act 3 or the 3-act format, also called the Hollywood formula. But yeah, you have your Act 2 portion, which is kind of the meat, your obstacles, your challenges that the characters are going through, and there's kind of various steps in there. And then you have your Act 3, which is essentially the conclusion. So I kind of like to follow just a general pattern, very broad, lay it out in that way, and then try to come up with what's going to happen chapter by chapter. With the healer, I actually was able to follow that pretty closely. That is not always the case with some, especially the larger books like the first Ethereal. I had outlines and was constantly having to revisit the outline, and found that I was deviating from the outline, which kind of just threw the whole thing off. So outlines, take them or leave them. Everybody's different in terms of their process. Some people are what they call discovery writers, right? And they don't like outlines at all. They think it just completely, for them, it even ruins the story for them to have to follow an outline, and that's perfectly fine. I think that it's important to at least know where you're starting and where you're going, know what you're trying to get to, and if you can fill in everything in between, then you'll get yourself a story. Then, of course, is writing the first draft, actually starting the writing. I do a lot of things chapter by chapter, so I will focus on a chapter. I do write in sequential order. I will write a chapter or two, and then I'll usually send it right over to my alpha reader, who is Jacob, who works in my team. He'll start to look at that. I'll go on to the next chapter. We may go through a round or two of my own self-editing and then the alpha reader feedback before I finally consider that basically final, at least final for my draft. So we go through that whole process until I have all the chapters done. All the chapters have been self-edited by me and looked over by my alpha reader. And then it's all together and it's ready. It's a complete story. It's ready for my beta readers. Then my beta readers, and I've come to develop a pretty good team of some of them have been regular readers of my projects since my first major project, which was a novelization of the video game Chrono Trigger. Ever since I developed that novel called Chrono Trigger: The Hero Rising, they've been with me since then. I've got a few readers, Jacob is one of them, that have been with me since that time. It's great to have a few readers that are just fans of everything that you do. But I also found, especially with this new novel, The Healer, I wanted to have several readers who were different and brand new. So we were able to come up with, you can find such people on some of the Facebook groups out there that actually were actually beta readers and ARC readers go to find new projects. That's one way you can find new readers. We found some of our readers through a group and a Discord server from another author. So there's a lot of different ways you can find good readers. But I really got a great team this time. And in this particular case, I think I probably had the most constructive feedback I have ever had when it came to all of my novels. I mean, Chrono Trigger, I put out there for years and had lots of feedback on that over the years. So I'll probably set that one aside and not really count that. That's a whole another thing. But between all my published works, Murdoch's Choice, Murdoch's Shadow, and now The Healer, definitely had the most feedback, I would say, on The Healer, which gave me a lot of things to think about and fix and change. So the beta reading stage was especially important for me this time. Found some things that I had simply kind of missed or not taken seriously enough in the plot, and really made a big difference. So I was extremely grateful to those readers who took the time to give me that feedback. And I guide all of those readers through a questionnaire. I do a pretty fancy system myself. I actually use an online system that I had developed for people to log into, get the chapters, read them, provide their feedback, get the next chapter, provide their feedback, get the next chapter. So in this way, I'm getting feedback chapter by chapter, which I think is important because that way you're getting fresh impressions of chapter by chapter, as opposed to just having readers go through the entire novel and then try to remember, what things worked and didn't work. I try to get as granular at a level as I can within reason, right? I don't want to overwhelm the readers, so I don't ask them too many questions specifically. But I do it chapter by chapter, and I just basically give them a big box and say, put your thoughts here, your feedback on this chapter, then you move on to the next one. And I have them rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. And they can even go outside that. If they want to give it a 0 because it's awful, which has never happened, thankfully, or if they want to give it like a 20 because it's amazing, they can do that too. And actually that has happened. So we go through that process of beta reading. The next step is to edit the novel based on that feedback. So do that. That next draft is completed. Then we're going into the professional steps of editing, right? So if you're following all of the steps that a traditional publisher would follow in most cases, the first one you go to is developmental editing. Developmental editing is broad level, looking at plot, looking at structure, looking at consistencies, making sure things make sense. And, it's hard to portray until you've done it. And I'm always surprised every time I do it and actually get the feedback. I think many of us as authors will send our manuscripts out to the editors and be like, man, I've got this, right? This is solid. I've done the best I could do. I bet that editor is going to come back and say, this doesn't need anything. Nope. Guys, doesn't happen. Doesn't happen that way. All right. The best writers in the world are going to have lots and lots of editor feedback. And it's a good thing. There's just always places where you can improve. So developmental edit comes back and there's plenty of stuff still to fix. Some of the things that some of the beta readers pointed out came up again. And I went through that process and made a lot of changes. There were some suggestions from the editor that I, of course, decided not to pursue, and that is totally fine as well. So you get that done, make those edits. Then the next step is the line edit or the copy edit. I have found that some people consider these one and the same, the line edit and the copy edit. This time I actually pursued them as separate steps. I was fortunate enough at this point, and probably novels going forward, to use the editor that is used by fantasy author Michael J. Sullivan. If you haven't heard of him, he's a very successful, highly acclaimed author. And I was able to use the same editor that he uses. And she does a separate process for both. She considers line editing to be more like an extensive analysis of the plot and the technical issues. It's almost kind of like a blend of developmental and copy edits combined. So it includes an analysis of plot chronology, phrasing, sentence readability, character motivations, analyzing those motivations against the dialogue and the actions that are taking place, the pacing, many other things. So it's blending like the more technical line-by-line things with kind of an overall just, analysis of what's going on with the plot. So it's pretty extensive. And then from there, you get to the copy edit. So those line edits can be extensive enough that it glosses over what the copy edit would catch. And the copy edit is more grammatical, more technical. It's including, analysis of the sentences, sentence structure, grammatical analysis, looking at things like character and setting consistencies as well. If you have a separate line edit, this would basically analyze how well you pulled it off. The copy edit is going to look at what you did on the line edit and see if you really accomplish those things well. And just as a little side note, Michael J. Sullivan's editor really liked what I did in the development of the healer. So I took that as a high honor, frankly. She gave me a lot of great comments and really, really, really liked the novel as it turned out. So then you might have a final proofreading step, which is a final polish and once over to just catch any remaining possible things missed after all the prior editing steps. Maybe in your last edit you used flare, F-L-A-R-E, when you should have used flare, F-L-A-I-R. Things like that. And also looking at things like punctuations, and proper use of a semicolon or ellipses or em-dashes, little things like that. Now, a word of caution about editors in general. Sometimes, for one, it's a good idea to use at least a couple of different editors in these processes. You don't want to use the exact same editor for the developmental side and the line or copy edit side. I used one person for developmental, and I used a different person for the line and copy, and I used a different person for the proofread. Because just as me, the author, when I've done my own self-editing and the drafting, will not catch everything, I'll gloss over things, I'll miss things, I'm too close to it. Someone else will also tend to miss something. And plus, as you're going through each step, you're making edits. And as you're making edits, especially if you end up rewriting entire scenes or reworking entire scenes or simply making extensive additions or deletions from the manuscript, you may have new errors show up that you didn't catch in the act of doing that. So the final proofread, may not be totally necessary after a good copy edit, but still tends to catch some stuff. So it's a final polish. It's basically a light copy edit. So it's still a good idea to do it. And so I used 3 different editors this time for the healer. And, I think the result speaks for itself. It's a very solid novel as a result of that. But the word of caution I wanted to get to is that sometimes different editors aren't fully consistent with their rules, like between each other. So, somebody might have a rule for handling ellipses. Somebody might have some leniencies here and there about how certain words are handled, or just little things. English is funny. English is funny in that it's complicated and sometimes inconsistent, and we've got different sets of rules, even if everybody's trying to look at the same, style. Some may be stricter in some things than others. The important thing here is, as a writer, you need to develop your own consistencies and stick with that. You have to decide what you're going to go with in certain areas. So decide how you're going to use ellipses and how you're going to use pauses and how you're going to use, the word all right, 2 words or 1 word, things like that. Know as a writer what you're going to stick to and just be consistent with that kind of stuff. Obviously, there's some things that you just have to change, but because some things are just right and some things are just wrong. So you have to kind of develop a sense for that. Hopefully that makes some sense. And now that the book is completed through all those stages, we move on to the formatting. And formatting is that is getting to your final files that will be used for the publishing. Some authors do this on their own. I send it to an experienced formatter. This step once completed, gets me the final files that I can use for both the ebook and the print versions of the book. So with that, those files are then what I can use for uploading to Amazon and sending to whatever printer I might be using. Now, concurrently, getting to one more thing here. This happens for me concurrently with the final steps of the editing process. As the book is coming to completion, as the final editing steps are being done, like maybe as my novel is with the copy editing stage with the copy editor or with the proofreader, we are working with the illustrator to create the cover art, which obviously has to be done before I can publish the book. So we're doing the cover art, we're doing the interior maps, we're doing any other artwork that I might want to use. For the healer, I actually created the front cover image showing Fulgar and Jinx and the mage. It's an action shot. We created the back cover image, which is Fulgar with the butterfly between his hands. We created character art for all the characters. We created Fulgar, Benny, Jinx, and the Shadow Mage. We did another action scene that was actually one of our candidates for the cover consideration. And of course, we did a map for inclusion in the book, and some ancillary sketches and things that went with that map. We did an illustration of the talisman that was considered on one of the versions of the maps. And we did a sketch of the talisman, and we did a sketch of the patrol map that shows up in the book. So, you don't have to do all of these, but it just, it depends how much you want, obviously. I commissioned quite a bit of art for this in my other books. Much of it's used directly in the book, but much of it is also used just for ongoing marketing and promotion purposes. So we can use it for social media, can use it for graphics, you can use it for a variety of things. So I think that's pretty much it. With the final cover and the interior files, the book is ready for publication. And so whether you're going for just Amazon or wide distribution, those files are good to go. You want your ebook file to be in an EPUB file and a Mobi file to use that for wide distribution. All you need is EPUB for Amazon, and then for the print, that can be sent to Amazon for the paperback and the hardcover. If you want to use KDP, or if you're going to use a different one like Ingram Spark or an offset printer, you're going to use those same print interior files for that. So you're off to the races at this point. And that's the whole process that I follow. So I hope you found that interesting. Hope you enjoyed this extensive video about my book creation process. If so, please smash that like button and subscribe to my channel on YouTube. We plan to continue posting videos about the development of my series, about information like what I gave you here. Off and on, I may talk about the process some more. Maybe I could talk about other parts of the process besides the creation and publishing side. We do interviews once in a while and hoping to do more. You might have seen previously the interview with Ed Romanoff, my audiobook narrator. So we're going to be doing more of those kinds of things. So subscribe to the channel, get notifications, make sure you have your notifications on so that you will see when new videos come out. Thank you guys so much for watching. May the light become you, my friends, and may the winds fare you well.